Hello, this is Clive Priddle, and this is The Current. We are joined today by Keion Henderson. Pastor Henderson is the senior pastor at the Lighthouse Church in Houston, Texas. It's a megachurch, and we're delighted to have you join us today, Pastor. And it's especially great because we have, in this series of interviews that we've had with authors, we've wanted to talk to people with different areas of expertise and as far as we can to hear different perspectives from around the country. We have not gone to Texas before, so thank you for introducing us to the great state of Texas. And let me just ask, how are you doing? We're reading about Texas and indeed other southern states at the moment as struggling with the coronavirus. I hope you and your family are well. How is your community doing right now?
So we're doing well. During what we would consider the first wave, if that's even a word, we just had no cases in the church. We heard of nothing, maybe one or two. But this second go round, especially in the wake of the marches and the protests, we had a rather large one here in the wake of George Floyd. It was about 60 or 70,000 people. Post that, oh my goodness, ICU beds are at capacity. People are, rightfully so afraid. But as cases are mounting, what we are hearing here on the ground is we haven't had any deaths as it relates to our community. And so we're grateful to God for that. So just keep Texas in prayer because we need it. But the people are resilient and they're strong, and we're going to get through this.
We wish all of Texas well, and I think everybody needs to take good care of each other right now across all the states. Tell me, how has your church, which it's a large congregation, I think, that you have in the thousands every week, presumably, maybe multiple times a week, have you had to think about telling people that they cannot come in large numbers or somehow distancing the congregation at all? How's that worked?
Yeah, so we actually have not opened the doors to the church yet. So since the pandemic, and here's a hilarious thing. I know we'll get to it later, but I released a book on the 24th of March, which was the same exact date that the tour was scheduled to kick off, which was the same day that the mayor of Houston came on television and said that the city had been shut down, which was the same day that he also made a proclamation that the 24th of March, 2020 would be Keion Henderson Day. So all of that happened in the same day, and I didn't get a chance to get anything out of it. But, our congregation is large, and we're in 4 different locations. And so we haven't been able to meet in any of those locations. We've done everything online, and we've tried to do a multifarious approach to it. And sometimes I'll record and preach live on a Sunday, or I'll bring in all the campus pastors, and we'll have something that we call Tackle the Text. And we'll put a message there, and all 5 of us will just kind of joust with it and see what we can do with it. We've interviewed teachers to show parents how to homeschool their children using online curriculum. We've interviewed the mayor of Houston, the sheriff. So we've done a lot to keep our people engaged. And we're finding that people are okay with this methodology. They've adopted and adjusted pretty well. So we're staying afloat. We're all looking forward to getting together again, obviously, because there's something about that interaction. But for the most part, we're maintaining.
It's fascinating to me because although I am an erratic churchgoer at best, I follow my wife's example more than anything. It always seems to me that the experience of being a churchgoer and the experience of faith in a church is an almost sort of tangible and physical one. And of course, when you have to shut your doors, that gets tremendously disrupted. So how do you find that you can communicate with people? How do you speak to people in a way that in some way comes close to that experience that they would get if they were actually in the church in front of you?
Yeah, so like you and many of your guests, I'm a student of history. And so, one of the best ways to find out what's coming is to have a peek at what's been. And so we, as a ministry, as a church, as a congregation, we had sought to and I hate to use the word perfect, but to leverage technology well before COVID happened. And so we were pretty busy on social media. We are in constant contact, no pun intended, with our members. We're sending emails. We've got ways of going live. Notifications. We keep our database from all of our conventions and conferences. And so we're able to reach our people. And that's something that is embedded in our organization. And being from Houston, with the advent of hurricanes being unpredictable, you have to have a system where you can reach out to people at a moment's notice. And so we got relationships with local news. So we're able to get our message out in a multiplicity of ways. And we really rely heavily on technology to do so. I tell you this, what we're seeing, obviously our congregation average age is about 38, 39 years old. So obviously anybody 25, 26, 30, 32, they're going to be pretty proficient at using the internet. What we failed at and what we had to readjust is we also have a population of our church, about 7 to 10%, that's above 60. And so here we are thinking that we're doing an amazing job talking to 90% of the people, until one of the senior citizens of our church came and said, "Pastor, I don't have a Facebook. I don't have," she called it an Instacart. She meant Instagram. She said, "I don't have that." So what we've got to go right back to the old message method, dialing that number, picking up that phone, speaking to one of our senior members. One of our senior members, I'll give you a quick story and we'll move on. Her toilets, her pipes had clogged up in her toilets. And she sent me a message and told me, she said, "Pastor, just pray for me. My toilets are not working." She's got 2 bathrooms in her home. Her husband, after 50 years of marriage, just passed away a couple years ago. So she's in that moment. And I've been trying to, stay connected. And so I just sent a plumber over to the house. And when she asked what the bill was, I made sure that the plumber had already been taken care of, so it was free to her. And those are the ways that we've been taking care of some of our senior members. So it's not a one size fits all. It is a tough job, but I think that we're up for the task. And so we're doing the best we can.
That's a great story. I was listening to you talk on another video about how I know you're also providing a lot of meals for people from the church, and I think probably going and distributing those too, and a lot of fundraising is dedicated to that. So for those of us outside of Texas, tell us a little bit about the community that you serve. You clearly have some people who are in financial need at the moment, and I imagine that Houston, like the rest of the country, is taking a bit of an economic kicking as a result of COVID. There are small businesses especially which are struggling. Is the church very active in that space?
Yeah, so here it is. Here's the irony of it. Again, our church is in 4 different locations. So it depends on which location you're in, which problem you're going to have. If you're at our south location, the average income in that side of town, the average person has 94% of the people have high school diplomas. Over 60% have college degrees, and the average household is over 200,000. Okay, so they don't need a soup kitchen. They don't need the clothes. Then you come over to our humble location, where 48% of the community is diversified with Hispanic and African American, and then the average median income is sub $38,000. And so on this side of town, we've given about 20,000 pounds of clothes away during COVID. We have adopted the local hospital, and we've served over 7,500 meals in that hospital. We've done some of everything. Frontline workers. We've done some scholarships to individuals who are in college. We have, I think, when you add our what we call our anti-hunger campaign, we're feeding about 3,000 people every other Monday right on the grounds of that church because that community needs it. Then you go downtown, which is a congregation of purely young people. They don't even know COVID exists because they do whatever they want and they go and come as they please. They're not asking for help. They're still going out and doing whatever they're doing. And you see them on Instagram on vacation. How do you figure, right? And then you go to our West Campus, and it's similar to our South Campus in that those numbers match the South. So it depends on where you are, depends on what we're doing, and it depends on how we react to all of those different congregations. But overall, we're still using the same plan. Be safe, be steady, be prayerful, be watchful. So we're dealing with them as individuals.
And how have you been, how has it been to kind of handle the big religious dates in the calendar? Like, I guess you were closed for Easter this year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important moment in the church's year every year. I mean, God willing, we will be open for Christmas. But how do you deal with that? Are you broadcasting services online? Are you doing special adaptations for people around that time, around the important times of year?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've galvanized our creative team, we've galvanized our media team, and we are doing as many things creatively as we can. For instance, Father's Day just passed, right?
Right.
And so instead of preaching a traditional message, I took a few of our staff members and I took our videographers and our creative team, and we went to a local basketball court, and I did a message talking about how basketball and the life of a man are synonymous. You can fall victim to traps. You got to make sure that you know how to operate in the zone. You got to make sure that as a father, you understand that you've been picked for the role. And in basketball, there's a famous play called pick and roll. So we're trying to be as creative as we can with that and broadcasting it. But let me tell you, Clive, on another note, I've been preaching 25 years. I just turned 39 last Saturday. I've been preaching 25 years. I am so glad to tell you that this is the first time that I haven't gone to church on a Sunday in all of my life, and now I understand why people don't go. It is a beautiful day sometimes to be outside and look at the sun shine and not have to get up in the morning. It just seems like the weather's always good on Sunday. I don't know why that is, but I even washed my car one Sunday morning. So
there you go.
While I love God and I cannot wait to get back into the service, I just want to thank him for giving us a couple Sundays off.
It's really funny you should say that, because a friend of ours, in fact, the guy who married us, he is a former Carthusian monk. There are, I don't think there's anybody who is a more solitary order than the Carthusians.
Absolutely.
They disappear into a very solitary space usually. And he's one of the people, I think, who has found it most difficult to not have a congregation, even if he wasn't used to having a large congregation. He's no longer, a monk in solitude. He's a preacher, but he's missed his people. He's missed having the people in front of him. He's missed the interaction. And I'm sure you're loving the extra cup of coffee on a Sunday morning, but you've got to be missing your people too.
Yeah. So what we do to solve that is, and they miss me too. And it's nothing like missing someone you love and the people you love missing you. So one of our answers to that is we'll do a huge Zoom, and I'll go into the church, and we've got like a 80-foot screen back there, and we'll do a Zoom, and we'll invite hundreds of people to come in to specific Zooms, and I'll teach them just like I'm talking to you, right, on a computer. And then towards the end, we'll unmute everybody, and everybody gets to yell at each other and say hello, and we miss you. And those 10 minutes are amazing, just to see just what that little bit of connectivity can do, even though it's not in the flesh. So I miss them terribly. I can't wait to get them together. And so we're just doing all we can to kind of ease that tension.
I got to tell you too, just because you were talking about basketball, the sign of the recovery in New York City is when the Parks Department put the hoops back in the playgrounds.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old knew that there was a future when the hoop came back.
Yeah. They're still missing here in Texas.
Are they? Right. Yeah. Well, we wish the hoops back very soon. I want to talk a little bit about your book too, because even if the timing in terms of the disruption to business and ordinary life must have seemed like a blow. The theme of your book is very much how to deal with adversity, how to find strength, even if you believe that you have been born into or been placed into less than perfect circumstances, how to draw the positives from difficulty. That seems to, I hope I'm paraphrasing the
Absolutely.
idea behind the shift well. And I think I'm sure it's a book that offers a lot of comfort to people right now, because I think there's a lot of adversity going around. When you wrote it, I'm sure you were thinking about the application of that book sort of almost on an individual basis. I mean, I imagine you visualize almost the reader in front of you and how they might adapt your message for themselves. One of the things that's so fascinating about the COVID challenge, and indeed the other challenges that have come this summer, is that they are challenges of scale. We have a very visibly distressed Black American population because they feel persecuted in different ways. We are all suffering from the effects of the virus. And I wondered if you have any thoughts about how does the idea of shift work, not just on an individual basis, but when it's like a whole community or a whole section of society, or maybe goodness knows, all of us. How do we do that, all of us, simultaneously? How does everybody learn to do this?
Yeah, so when I wrote the book, obviously you were absolutely right, Clive, at how you prescribed it. I envisioned an individual with a book in front of their face, and I envisioned them reading my story and finding their power. It's the only reason I wrote the book. The book took me 20 years to write. This wasn't a book that I sat down one day and said, okay, in 2 months it'll be done. I had the story with me when I was approached by Hachette, when I was approached by Dupree Miller. I had already had the story. We fine-tuned it, and I wrote it for the end user to say, you know what, this is where I am in life. This is where I want to be. And this is how I courageously move from this place to that place. I had no idea that there would be social unrest. I had no idea that African Americans would be overtly expressing disenfranchisement. I had no idea that the earth would be in a conflict like this. But when I wrote the book, I also knew, now in hindsight, that it was almost prophetic in its release, that here we are at a moment where the very tenets of the book are applicable to where we are today. When I wrote the book, there is something in the book that says that at some point in your life, you are responsible for your own delivery. And that is called liberation. That's where you decide that where I am is not where I want to be, that this is not the end for me, and then thereby assuaging the courage to courageously move from where you are to where you want to be, or as I said in the book, moving from history to destiny, moving from the place of your past, moving to the place of your future. And in every person, according to an author, Eckhart Tolle, he says in The Power of Now, in every one of us, there is something called a pain body. And that pain body needs feedback. And what you see in the world today is everybody's pain body seeking feedback, seeking validation, seeking their story to be told. And the world is screaming. This isn't just America, Clive. You know this. This is the world. The world is marching. The world is in a pandemic. The world has been shut down. The world is in testing. When have we in our lifetime seen every continent having the same problem simultaneously? Well, that's a good thing, because the book teaches that if we can all settle down and look at what our real issue is and recognize that the issue is ancient, that the issues are old and that they're not new, and that we have come to a place where we haven't solved our old problems and we haven't applied technology to the way we treat people, to the way we love each other. And when I say technology, I'm not talking about gadgets. I'm saying new ideas. You know, I'm reminded of Blockbuster. When I was a child, my mother and I, we used to go to Blockbuster. That was our field trip. And Blockbuster, they successfully moved from having VHS. I'm old enough to remember that. Then they went to DVDs. But where they failed is when Netflix started mailing DVDs to people's homes, and they did not keep up with that technology. Why? Because they would rather talk about their history rather than decipher their destiny. And now Blockbuster no longer exists because they did not adjust. That's what's happening with the world right now. We are Yahoo. Google is giving it away for free, right? And we're still operating in a Yahoo mindset. We've got to move along. We've got to understand that there is red blood under all of this skin, whether it's white skin, brown skin, black skin. And we've got to understand that with the pandemic, whether you believe that wearing a mask is a leftist agenda and you're right not to is a rightist agenda, we're all human. And wearing masks, according to the CDC, saves all of our lives. So can we just, in the words of Rodney King, can we all just get along? Can we all understand that we share this planet together? Can we all understand that the emissions out of all of our cars is contributing to the melting of the polar ice caps? Or are we going to have to discuss? It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. So that's what the book addresses. We are in a seismic shift, and nothing has ever changed the world without a seismic shift.
It has been a total delight talking to you today. And I really want to thank you for giving us your time and your insight and your wisdom. And from one New Yorker to one Texan, we wish Texas well, especially because we know you're struggling with the COVID right now and the other struggles we're all going through. So have a good summer, and thank you so much.
Well, and to you guys there in New York, you showed us how we can do this. And so thank you so much for your time, and to all of your staff and producers. It's my honor. I hope I was able to bring value to the audience, and look forward to doing it again.
Hachette,